Hello, my name is Chris Sagalow. I just finished writing a book called Running with Rainbows, The Afterlife, and Other Stories. I'm finding that many people today are interested and want to know more about the afterlife and other mystical things that people write about and talk about. And many are questioning whether they're true or whether they are things that that are really happening, and they just want answers. So I have come from a very open-minded psychic family. My grandmother was a psychic and did seances, and so many of her grandchildren and children had the same gifts. And I inherited her gifts in many ways. Some things I'm still waiting to know more about. She was very, very gifted, and everything has been done in a very sacred and spiritual way, I find. The story that I want to share with you today is about my brother and when he transitioned to the other side. My brother was a true psychic. His name was Mick, and he was a little older than me, and he could often speak to the other side too. When I'd ask him how he did that, he'd just say, well, you just ring him up, you can do it. So he showed me a little bit about how to get started and open up that part of me that had been shut down for a while. After my mother passed away and we shared the stories about our parents and what we had experienced, we started talking about more things and so became more informed about the many gifts that we both have had. I was called to his room in the hospital as he had taken a turn. He had at one time been involved in a group of bikers called Ghost Riders, and they were the Bandidos, and they were similar to Hells Angels. After he came back from Vietnam, he was not a very happy person. He became a policeman for a while and was a motorcycle policeman. So when he started to do more with his motorcycles, he started to find out more about this particular group, which seemed fine with him at the time because of his bad experience in the military. He didn't stay with them very, very long, but long enough that he kept friends with many of them. So when I went into the hospital room, he was there with his soulmate, Carol. She was his girlfriend in high school, and they never lost sight of each other through many years, and they reunited at a high school reunion, and so had been together for a while since that time. She had just finished shaving him, and they were laughing, and I came into the room with two feathers. One was an owl feather and one was an eagle feather, and I brought a prayer bundle that was filled with sage and tobacco and lavender and some other things, cedar and other little medicines that we used. And the first thing that he asked me was, where were the feathers? I didn't even tell him I was going to bring any feathers. And so I gave him the eagle feather that I had and put the owl feather that I had on the windowsill, which is what I was told to do by the person who gave it to me. And he held the eagle feather and wanted me to smudge him. And since you can't really light up things in a hospital, we wetted it down and we washed him with the sage bundle and said a prayer together. And the one thing that I noticed when I came into the room was our mother was at the foot of the bed, and she was kind of like lying on her side. And I wondered, why is our mom here? What's she doing here? What's going on? Because he and Carol seemed to be doing fine. Then he started to kind of get upset and talk about upset and arguing with something. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, well, I'm arguing with our dad. He said, I can't, you don't see him. For all the things that you see, you can't see our dad sitting here? No, nope, I couldn't. He said, well, you have no idea what he's telling me. And he was not very happy. And then all of a sudden, he stiffened up a little bit. And right at that time, 4 Native Americans came through. I'd say I call them spirit takers. They came through the wall. There were one here and down here and two on the side. And they were in their leathers and eagle feathers hanging from their hair. And you could tell it was from a very old time. And at the same time, and the front door opened of the room, and 4 fellas came in that looked like they were fashion show from Hell's Angels. They had black leather on, shiny, looked like brand new. Their hair was all different and very clean, and hats, and it looked pretty interesting. And they came in the same form, up here, and up here, that I had seen the Native Americans. And my brother's form, or his body, his soul, left from his back towards the owl feather, and the Indians went with him, and everything changed. And I didn't know what I had done. I thought maybe I'd caused something. And I told the people that had just come in the door who I was, because I had never met them before. One of them was his roommate, very nice people. And they were very understanding, and they were close friends with my brother. And my brother was still kind of babbling his talk, making no sense. And we called in the nurse, and they wheeled him off. And I knew that he was gone, and I didn't expect what I saw happen, but he left, and the doctors pronounced him that he was deceased. And I knew that he was, because I saw him leave. And that night, Carol and I spent the night in his bed, and I had a dream. And I dreamed that he was with James Dean, who had been his idol ever since he was very young. He loved James Dean, the actor. And he was in his brown leathers, which was the Ghost Riders' way that they dressed. And he was with James Dean, and he was very happy. And the next morning, 2 of his fellow that had been in the room the day before came in and said, "Did your brother come to you in a dream?" And I said, "Yes, he did." And I told him, and they high-fived and were very excited. They said, "He told us he was going to come to you in a dream to let us know that he'd made it into heaven, and that when he found James Dean, that he totally made it, and without any problems." And so that was an interesting way to meet my brother in the afterlife. My brother also traveled with Native Americans up in the hills above where he lived, and his spirit guide was Crazy Horse. And my brother was so well known that bikers from all over the country came to his memorial, which was a huge rented out stadium. My brother's name in their group was Buddha. And when Carol and I decided to spread his ashes, we went to the place that they visited in high school. And it was on a mountaintop on an Indian reservation in Idaho. And so we took his ashes, it was a month later, to this special spot that they shared. And there wasn't a breeze, any wind. It was just a beautiful fall day, beautiful clear sky, and just overlooking a beautiful area. And when we spread the ashes, a whirlwind came up to the ashes and whirled around and spread the ashes around us. And we knew that was my brother's sense of humor with his last moment with us. It was a special time. We both laughed, we knew he was there and he was doing that. My brother has come to me many times since then and has visited with me about things that I was doing in my life and how he wanted to be there for me. Sometimes I can feel him when I play Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard, because he loved that music, and I feel like we dance when he comes in. And recently he came in and helped me with a friend that I called him in and doing some work with someone that I was having a little difficulty helping. And so he came in and brought some of his ghostwriters with him. I saw their form, and they came into my prayer room and helped with what I was doing. He came to me not too long ago as Carol had crossed to the other side. He went to her. She was asleep in her body, and when she woke up, she didn't know that her body was no longer living. And he tapped her, and she came out of her body, and she was with her husband. That was a very loving man to her, knowing that she had loved too, and he was okay with that. And she just put her finger up a little bit to tell my brother that just a minute, and she kissed 2 fingers and put them on her husband's forehead, and then they left together. And I knew that they would always find each other at the end because we talked about it. And I heard her say to me, "You were right, Chris, even death couldn't keep us separated. It could not keep us apart." So my brother wrote to me, an automatic writing to me not too long ago, when I asked if he could share anything in my book. And what I wrote was that they both had an agreement when they came here that as they were soulmates and that they had different things they wanted to experience. He wanted a little bit of a risky life, and she wanted more traditional with a family and children. And so they both experienced that life together, and at the end they found each other again and went on to the other side. My message from this is that love never dies, and we don't either. I hope that I can come back at different times and share more of these stories with you, and maybe more stories from my brother as he pops in and out. But I've been with so many different people that have transitioned and then have found them in the other life and the other world, I'll call it. Sometimes I've seen a few at their funerals or their memorials. I can see them coming in, I can find them, and I can share things with their families. I've visited with mothers of children who have passed, and with even a person that had been murdered. And I've been taken many places and shown many things in my life. And it's time that I share them now as I get older, and I want people to know that there are other things going on, that sometimes they just don't see them, but everybody has the ability to do these things. Maybe they haven't come from a family where they inherited it, but there are certain things that can be learned, and this can be experienced. Well, what I like to do is, one thing I didn't mention was that the light, which is the very important part of my life, the light that came into my mother's room when she crossed to the other side, and the experience that I had with her. And this light came in with my brother and his crossing and his transitioning as well. And when I pray, that light comes into my room all the time, in my prayer room. And I always see it, and I'm always excited to be a part of that, because I know that creation is showing itself, that God is with me always. And I have found that there's so much fear going on today that it keeps us from understanding and remembering the true spirit of the creation. And so I go downtown and open my heart and share it with everyone that I meet, and spread that light wherever I can. So now I'm going to go downtown. I'm going to have a cup of coffee like I like to do. I'm going to wear my hat that I like to wear. And I'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.